Hello and good morning. Welcome to the AVP channel. This is the Saturday conversation, and today my guest is someone who is very well known in the benefice and particularly in Fordingbridge, Mr. Graham Fry. Hello, Graham. Nice to see you.
Hello, John. Nice to see you again.
Well, how do we call Graham? I call him the White Angel, Mr. Greenfingers, the man from Mars, and we have to mention that he's a member of the Unpredictables, which is this illustrious dart team that can't play darts. Anyway, Graham, welcome.
Thank you, John.
It's very nice to have you on the program.
Yeah. It's like desert island distances.
Yes. Well, maybe a good place to start is where your life started, Graham. So perhaps you could tell us a little bit about your early beginnings.
Okay, well, basically I'm a local guy. I was born in Salisbury Infirmary on May the 2nd, 1944. I'm sure it was a lovely day. Why they didn't have a bank holiday on my birthday instead of the day before, I'll never know. And Mum had no idea that she was expecting twins. She thought she was just going to the hospital for another baby, because I've got a brother 8 years older. And both of us came out. So there we are. That was the first big surprise.
Okay, who came out first, Graham?
Well, I don't like to boast, but I actually made it first.
You pipped him to the post.
I did. I had a blue badge. He had a red one. Yeah, we were, I don't know, quite a good weight. I think it was £6 something or other each. So that was in Salisbury Infirmary, and we grew up in the heart of Salisbury in St Edmund's Church Street, a terraced house. And we had 3 bedrooms because Dad was a master carpenter and a very good one at that. And he made a bedroom up in the loft when we arrived. So poor old John was demoted to the upper echelons of the house, where it was probably a bit warmer than the lower ones. And we had the other bedroom. And we grew up there, and I had just a wonderful childhood. We were out and about all the time. But
How long did you live in Salisbury?
Until I got married, so 21
wow.
years.
Wow, right.
Yeah.
So you,
and then when
went
I got
to school there as well?
Yeah, went to school there. I went to St Mark's Primary School in Wyndham Road. There's a lovely teacher there, Mrs Gregory. Even at that age, I admired her, but there we are. That's another story.
We all have crushes on teachers.
Well, of course we do, but not at 6 years old, but there you go.
Well, you can start young, Graham.
I know. Then we went from a primary school to St Thomas's School, again in the heart of the city, near St Thomas's Church. That was a very old school. The school was in 2 halves, joined by a playground in the middle, a river at the side. And yeah, that was a good school, but a bit hard. The most enjoyable was the lunch break, not lunch breaks, the coffee breaks in the morning, because someone used to go out and buy a whole baker's tray of buns.
Oh, wonderful.
They sold buns for £1 each. Yeah. It sounds designed going back to Edwardian times even, but yeah, £1 each. And that kept us going during the morning. And then from that school, most of the pupils went to Bemington Heath. They built a brand new secondary modern school up there. Okay. But my mum and dad said, no, you're not going all the way up there. It's too far to come back at lunchtime, which we used to come back home for lunch every day on our steedy bikes. And so she pumped us into Highbury Avenue School, secondary modern. Okay. And we thought, and the first lesson we went into was French. And we didn't even know what the word French meant. We'd never experienced that before. But there was a bonus. Because it was a mixed school. So there were girls in the classroom, which we never experienced before. So that certainly made a big conversation.
Yes. I mean, that takes some doing, doesn't it, when you're an adolescent? It's like sharing lessons with, I went to an all-boys school, so I missed out on the experience. But I'm sure that was a very important part of your education. Yeah.
But going back to the old days, when we lived in Salisbury, we had this terrace cottage, and we had a front room, which started sort of built from a huge, great entrance. And then we went to a lounge, fireplace. But just before you got to the end of the passageway to go in the lounge, there was a coal bunker. So you opened this door, which was under the stairs, and the coalman used to come in with his big sack, and plonk it all in there, all this coal dust going everywhere. I don't know how Mum survived all that. And then out in the kitchen, we had a copper, which we used to heat with firewood. And then we had a pump to pump it up to the bathroom. I mean, how basic.
Up to the bathroom, right.
Yeah. And there's no washing machines, or we had a mangle, which is my job to turn. They try and get the clothes a bit drier. Yeah. So, but happy day.
Well, you're bringing back some very, very, very happy memories for me, really, except that we didn't have a bathroom. I actually had one of these tin baths that used to hang in the backyard.
Oh yes.
But we had to bring that into. I had to bring that into the kitchen to fill it from the copper in the corner. Anyway, so Salisbury sounded a really, really good experience for you. And did you enjoy school?
Yes, I did. There wasn't a lot of sports. We only had the small sports field, so we had to go to Ashley Road, just public land to play football and things. But I like running. I did represent the school at running. Went to a place up in Devizes and I won a real leather cufflink box, which is very exciting. I've still got it. Yeah.
Okay. So you were telling me, you said early on, you have a twin brother.
I do.
So what's it like being a twin?
It's absolutely brilliant. You've got a confidant for a start. You've got someone you can always play with when you're younger. And we contact each other every week now. In fact, I went to see him for the day yesterday, him and his wife. We always have a good laugh together. Our likenesses, we like exactly the same things, including clothes, and our view on the world and politics is mirrored as well.
So have you ever had any of those experiences where he's doing something and you can kind of like feel his presence? I mean, some twins actually have a kind of a connection, a sort of over and beyond, as it were, meeting each other.
No, I mean, when we were young, we were always dressed the same. We had exactly the same grey suits on and so on. Which was.
Or did you take it in turns then to get in trouble?
Well, as time went on, when you're teenagers with girlfriends, that was quite interesting. They weren't quite sure who they were going out with sometimes, whether it was me or David, which you could play on a bit. But we went to a friend's wedding many years ago. Well, not many years, probably about 20 years ago. And David and I turned up in identical suits and ties. And the bridegroom's father thought we were having a laugh with him. He said, "What the heck? You turned up with a wedding?" I said, "I didn't know what he was going to wear, and he didn't know what I was going to wear. But we do the same." And of course, I got twins, and they've done exactly the same. They just, the things they like are so similar to each other that we buy the same.
So, who's in your family then? You're no.
Right, in my family, my mum and dad died, unfortunately, when I was 31, so that I much regret, but that's life. I had twins, and then we took out an insurance policy when we tried for another one. Fortunately, it wasn't needed, but we didn't know the twins were coming until 6 weeks before they were born. There was no scans in those days. Right. So that I remember Christine coming into the supermarket where I was a manager, and she pointed up to the office where I was, and she said something like, "I'm expecting twins." So I picked myself up with the news. We bought the pram and everything. Everything had to go back and start again. So we've got the twins, and they're, what are they now, 54, I suppose. And Jonathan, he's 51. He lives in Verwood. One twin lives in Corsham, and one lives in Fordingbridge.
So how did you meet Christine?
That was a blind date.
Blind date? Wow.
My best friend at the time, because when we got to the age where you had sort of a specific interest, David likes fishing. I wasn't very keen on fishing. But, they had a barb hooks in those days, and they'd taken it out of the fish. I couldn't do all that. So he had a friend that liked fishing. I had another friend. And what was the question?
How do you meet Christine?
Oh, yes. So I introduced my best friend, to his wife, because I knew her from church, St. Edmund's Church. And so they got on famously, they married, and they're happily ever after. And in return, Jean, who I introduced to Rod, worked with Christine. And she said, why don't you come along and meet this dishy guy? No, I said that.
This was your brother, of course.
So we went to the City Hall on a dance, and met each other there. Wonderful. I'm not sure whether it was a Beatle, where the Beatles turned up twice there. First time, nobody recognised them, so they just carried on dancing. The second time, very different matter.
How long have you been married then, Graham?
56 years next February.
56 years. Wow, that's marvellous. Wonderful.
It's gone. Amazing.
So,
yes, that's the family.
So from school to work, how did that happen?
I stayed on an extra year at school for GCEs and things, which is an absolute disaster. They had no classroom for sixth form, as you might call it, so they put us in the governor's room, and they just left us there and gave you a few books to read. So that turned out to be a waste of a year. Meanwhile, my older brother John had gone into the grocery business with a company called Perks in Butcher Row, and then he moved on to be manager of other stores. David then came along and did the same. He went into Perks and learnt the grocery trade. And then when I left a year later, I went to Robert Stokes, High Class Grocers in Silver Street, and I did an apprenticeship in there and took exams and everything else. But once that was over, David, meanwhile, had moved from Perks to a new supermarket in Bridge Street called Price Rights, and that's where the money was.
Oh, right.
He was about to leave to go to his first store, so I jumped in his place as assistant manager, and then I left just before Christmas, about a year later, because the manager went down with a nervous breakdown in Chichester. So I went down to Chichester, took over the store, and I was promised Yeovil in September.
Okay.
Well, they came along in about March, and they said, Yeovil's much farther ahead than we expected. We want you down there now to oversee the build, the final bit. I said, well, I've just signed a lease for 6 months on a flat. Oh, I'm sorry, if you want to come, you've got to come now. So we had to pay that off and get down to Yeovil. Christine went to live with her mother in Winterslow, and I went down there in Diggs to open the store. And then we all moved down there. We bought a bungalow for about $3,700 I'll pay for a 3-bedroom bungalow, brand new.
Fantastic, isn't it? Amazing. Yeah.
And I spent 5 years down there managing the store. And then from there, I used to see the reps coming in, messing about with confetti. Oh, no, I followed David again because David left Price Right to join Kellogg's. Snap, crackle and pop and all that. And of course, he had weekends free car, expenses. I thought, this is the life.
This is the life.
Yeah. So the Mars man came along. He said, there's an interview if you're interested, which I went to. And I had to go to 2 interviews in the end because the guy said I was earning too much money. I'd have to take a half, 50% cut in salary. I said, well, I wouldn't have applied for this job if I didn't think I could manage it. Anyway, I did get the job. And 3 weeks later, he gave me a £1 a week rise. He said, you're doing so well. Yeah.
Hence the man from Mars.
Hence the man from Mars. You start at the bottom, you have an estate car filled up with sweets in the back. The roof rack on the top is filled with these wonderful mahogany, what we call self-service, which they stick on the counter near the till, because it's very much an impulse buy, confectionery. If you don't see it, you don't buy it. But if it's there under your nose, you'll pick it up. As long as we have the first 2 or 3 rows on this 5-row self-server, they can put what they want on the rest of it. So that's what we did. You start from the bottom and then you work up, go through wholesale. And I ended up with Natural Accounts in charge of the Channel Islands and SO and Shell.
Oh, wow. How exciting. Oh. So you had frequent trips to the Channel Islands? Is it by boat or do you have fly out? Or?
No, fly out.
Fly out, yeah.
Money was no object in those days, unlike today. I used to go every fortnight from Southampton, stayed at the Grand Hotel in Jersey and a lovely hotel in Guernsey, 2 days in each. It was a very nice life. Really? Well, you had to work, obviously, but
you obviously had to work hard.
Indeed.
Keep up the sales.
Yeah.
So when did you retire?
I retired after 28 and a quarter years in April 1999, 2 weeks before my 55th birthday.
Okay. So the big question is, what do you fill your time with? What are your...
Oh, you do hear of people that say, I've retired and I'm really getting bored because I just don't know what to do. And I just can't believe that people say that.
No.
Well, first of all, you're much in demand. If you're retired and there's vacancies on committees, you know, you're much desired property. So I joined several organisations, some of which I'm still associated with, such as I'm trustee of Friends of Fordham Parish Church.
Right.
I'm treasurer of the Horticultural Society. I'm treasurer of the West Acres Residents Association.
A man who likes to dabble with the money.
Well, that sort of put on me, really. It's sort of self-taught in a way.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously quite proficient because you've been sought out for these jobs.
Well, yeah, they're not too complicated in terms of jobs.
Yeah.
But obviously, I like gardening, associated with horticulture. I absolutely adore gardening. And,
what is it about gardening that grabs you?
Well, gardening, as you may have heard from many people, you lose yourself in the garden. I've been out in the garden yesterday, taking down some plants and things, and you just lose time. You're in your own little bubble. You don't even think about anything else. You just think about what you're doing, and it's just wonderful. And to see all these plants grow, and transplant them on, and to take cuttings and to show them at the show, at the Horticultural Society, very pleasing.
Sounds totally absorbing.
It is totally. That's a good, very John. I wish I thought of that. Yeah, totally absorbing.
Totally absorbing. Yeah. Okay. So, because time is running on, curious about your kind of church contacts. I mean, clearly they started in Salisbury.
Yes, I started at St Edmund's Church. Well, I was in St Edmund's Church Street, as I've already said, and we went to, obviously, the St Edmund's Methodist Church was about 50 yards up the road.
Okay.
So I went there for Sunday school, for Cubs, for Scouts, and great church. Reverend Ernest Dover, when he gave a sermon, nobody slept. My goodness me. I better behave myself. I don't want to get into his bad books. And then my peers that I went to school with, they were Church of England. They went to St Edmund's Church of England at the top of the street. And they came down to me and they said, we're opening a new youth club. Why don't you come up and give it a go? We were putting up a bar and everything else. You could help us. So I went up there and never went back to the Methodist. So I got involved with serving up there. That was when I was about 14.
When you first started, yeah.
So I've been serving now for, well over 60 years. And I did bell ringing up there. Not the bell ringing you accept in St Mary's. It was wooden staves
like
on a wall. And you
like a carillon with rings. Yeah,
that's a good word too. Yeah, carillon. So we used to play that as well. And we had a brilliant youth club. And the congregation up there were just like a family. Lots of social things going on. It was a really good place to be. And then we thought we'd get ourselves sophisticated. So we used to go down to the Red Lion Hotel in Milford Street, Salisbury, and we would have a coffee and a digestive biscuit in the sort of semi-dining room there. And we thought we were the bee's knees then.
Yeah.
Because one thing we
growing up graciously.
Exactly. Because one thing we didn't do for some reason or other, I never used to go into pubs. Well, none of us did.
Well, there you go.
Always coffee shops. So I don't think I've ever been drunk in my life, really. I've been merry, but not drunk.
Good to hear. Good to hear.
Not that I like beer.
So when did you move to Fordingbridge?
Fordingbridge, we moved down here on March the 17th, 1981. So we've been down here.
Is that your first contact with St Mary's then?
It was. We went down there after just a week or so. The only people we knew was Janet and Ian Newman. Janet, because when I was on the road, I used to go into oak shops in Fordingbridge and see Janet. She did all the confectionery ordering.
Okay.
And so I knew her from that. And of course, through her, we knew Ian. So they were first people we met walking into Fordingbridge Church. And I'd only been there a matter of weeks. And they said, we want a church warden. And so I became church warden in '82.
Really? I didn't know you were church warden. Wow.
Yeah, church warden. And then I get, that lasted 3 years. And then I came back again in '92 as deputy church warden because they were short of someone to take it over. And then, Ted Clark, Brian Jordan used to live just opposite here. He died a long time ago. He was sacristan, and he said, come and join us, which I did. And then Ted Clark took over as sacristan. I worked with him for 18 years. Lovely man. David Melbourne is now sacristan. I work with him. So he does them Sunday morning, early Sunday mornings and a Wednesday. And I do the 10 o'clock and the other Wednesday, because there's 2 Wednesdays a month now where we have a BCP service. And
a long connection with the church.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
I mean, you, if I can say, you've lived a very, very full life. It always seemed to me that you are that you go about life in quite a kind of patient way, but you're always very attentive. You're attentive to lots of things, lots of interests.
I do like things be done properly.
Yes.
I always remember when I started serving in St Edmund's Church, there was a guy called Frank Card who trained us. Now we had to sit. We had a sort of a palmet on the edge of the high altar, and we used to sit there. Our shoes had to be shiny black.
Absolutely.
Our knees had to be together. Our posture, we had to have straight backs.
Straight backs. And
you were seen and not heard. And that stuck with me right the way through to the present time. So when I train servers, that's what I don't want legs out straight or cross legs or things like that.
All brown shoes.
All brown, no, it's got to be black shoes. You ask any of the girls, they know about me.
I'll tell you. Graham, it's been lovely talking with you. And thank you so much for sharing lots of things about your life and your interest. And
I could go on if you want to.
You could, I understand. We could have part 1, part 2,
part 2,
3.
This is true.
We're going to have to call this to a close. But thank you so much, Graham. It's been absolutely delightful.
You're very kind. Thank you.
I wish you well. God bless you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.